Hotep, I'm Dr. Gloria Latimore-Peace, host and producer of Our New Presents, the H3o Art of Life show. I had a hard time coming up with a title for this show because I realized that if I'm going to be interviewing a legend, that I probably couldn't cover with one single title the scope of the conversation. So I'll just introduce the legend, Webb Evans, and I'm believing you're the founder of the United American
Yes, I am.
Progress Association. Okay, United American Progress Association founder and president, and then of course his very capable chairman of the board of the United American Progress Association. And I always call you Sykes Preacher. So whatever appears under your name is, is Rahim Aton. Minister Rahim.
Yes.
I'll try to remember that throughout this conversation. But I think that we need to begin with a discussion of the background of the organization you founded and why and for when, because I've known about it for many, many years.
First, let me express my appreciation of having me here.
All right.
That I might say something that might help our people. The United American Progress Association was organized in 1961. It was organized when I began to realize that the people who owned everything controlled everything. And it was other people who owned all the business, and we were just laborers. And if we ever get where we need to go, we're going to have to own more than a church. And that's where I started out. The church is important, but at the same time, we got to have more business than church business. And I started out to get African Americans involved in business and ownership and get us spending our money where it's going to help us. We are the only people that I know that live in one neighborhood and spend most of their money with the people who live somewhere else. There's only a few people in the world, the whole country, that have more money than black people in America. According to the United States Department of Labor, they state that $1 billion spent will create on the average of 50,000 jobs a year. So that means if we spend our money among ourselves, we create our own job. And the people who create jobs will always be working more than those who just look for a job. And most black people have been looking for a job and still looking for a job. When if we use our money, we can create the jobs that they're looking for.
I don't want to interrupt you, so I think you should continue. I have been in places and heard you lecture, and you can go on, so don't stop there.
Yeah. Well, we'll be celebrating our golden anniversary
50 years.
October the 16th at Mr. G's, and that's at 1547 West on 87th Street. 50 years telling African Americans, stop depending on other people for everything. When you depend on other people for your needs, you're always going to be in need. And that's where we've been all of these years. And there was a time when our people taught our children to go to school and get an education, and the man will give you a job. We must stop teaching our children that. Teach some of our children to go to school and let's open some business and create some jobs. That's what we need to do. Right today, in the black community, we only have in the whole country, only have 11 supermarkets, and we should have that many in Chicago.
That's right.
That means somebody's all the food that black people eat, all the obese black people with the food that we're eating, somebody is making all that money for selling it to us. Somebody make the money that's making our clothes. We look at somebody else to make the clothes we wear. Somebody else to raise the food. We got to get away from that and start working with ourselves, for ourselves, to do these things what we're looking for somebody else to do. So that's what the United American Progress Association is all about. And I speak every Tuesday almost to 25 or 30 pastors. Tell them that heaven will be where it's always been. But God wants us to do something to make life better here on earth. And I actually believe when he said, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, that meant for us to do something here, make this place better. I've never been to heaven, but I'm here and I see what here and I see what good and what hell you can catch here. And I think instead of us use all our time telling how good it is in heaven, let's do more time getting us out of some of the hell we're in on earth.
Well, you know, I just discovered a black credit union. I was so thrilled. I got an email from somebody, and I called them up and I asked them how long they had been there, and they told me they had been there for 8 years. And I said, well, now, you know, I think I'm pretty well informed, but somehow the message that you're giving us now, we are not circulating the information among ourselves as to where we can go to do business with each other. Because had I known, I went immediately, when I hung up the phone and went immediately to join that credit union. I am so thrilled about it. I have no misgivings, I have no apprehension. They are regulated by the same people that other credit unions are regulated by. And so I'm not concerned. I don't have any fear or doubt that they will handle whatever I put in their custody in the same way it would be handled any place else. And I'm just absolutely thrilled to know that we have at least one financial institution that I now know about. We have three. Tell me about, come on, the three banks. Because sometimes I've been told that banks are black banks, but they don't do, let me tell you my experience, and then you can tell me if this is no longer the practice. At one time when I was banking in two black banks, I wanted to buy a house. I could not get a mortgage. I wanted to start a business. I could not get a business loan. And I wanted to know what the people were doing with the money. I said, I'm putting money in here and I can't get any money out. And I don't think it had anything to do with my credit rating, because I was able to go somewhere else and get a mortgage, and somewhere else and get the business loan that they were going to give me did not give me a line of credit that was sufficient. You can't give somebody a 30-day line of credit, because if they got to pay back the money in 30 days, it isn't a line of credit. It's just a charge, and then you have to pay it in full. So I went to take every single dime that I had, it wasn't a lot, out of the bank. They got all the bank officers came from out of everywhere, because you can't just take money out of the bank without somebody signing off. And they wanted to know why I was doing it. And I said, because if I'm typical, if I'm an example, you are not making mortgage, you're not loaning money to us. So when you tell me about your three banks, tell me that these three banks are the banks that are loaning money to black people so that they can buy houses, so that they can conduct businesses, and also so that they can make student loans, because that was something else I had to do before it was over. I'm happy to say that a black bank did make a student loan to me and let me finish. Okay. So 1 out of 3 ain't bad for that story.
The 3 I named may not be among the banks that you're talking about.
Okay, so the black bank to me is a bank that makes assets available to black people.
Right. Okay. Number one. That's why I say, there's nobody that I hate that I know, because hate will destroy you. But for black people, we must learn how to let our money help us. And then when you're talking about the bank, and I talk as much to the business people or more than I talk to the consumer. Because I tell any business person, don't let anybody be better to your customer than you are. You see what I mean? And I've been in business. I've had 2 grocery stores and a bookstore. And I've made history. Garland Geis, who has passed, and he was working with the Small Business Administration, and he said, Evans, I want to do some speaking for me. I said, what you mean? How to run a successful business. He said, most of the businesses your side going out of business, and we've loaned them some money. He said, but we find out from studying your operation that you making more per square foot than the chain store's doing. And they had me doing some picking for them. Well, there's a number of things I won't go into that how we did it. And then what was helpful, I took care of some city business, I took care of some state business, and that was through the goodness of some people working in those places. And they told me, said, if white was in the position I am, they would give this business to their people. So I'm in this position, I'm going to give it to you now. So all of that helped. So that's why I say all the time, our success, our future depends on to what extent, business and non-business, that we can come together among ourselves.
And help each other.
Help each other. That's why the basis is. Now, I've worked with Dr. King in the civil rights movement, and I always said the biggest mistake we made in the civil rights movement, while we've done all the marching, and you know what I told him? I said, it looked like we'd be spending our money with each other. We're spending our money with the same people causing us to have the march, putting the dogs on it, putting the water hose on it. And the statement he made, well, I don't intend to march all my life in a civil rights marches. He said, one day, he says, I'm going to turn the civil rights struggle into a struggle for economic and political empowerment. And he made that statement public before he was assassinated. And that's where we are today. Today, we need to be in a struggle of economic. That's the basic thing that black people need. We done reached the top in nearly everything. Well, let me share this with you. When it comes to running, Jesse Owens is top. When it comes to fighting, Muhammad Ali and Joe Louis is top. When it comes to singing, Marian Anderson, Mahalia Jackson is top. When it comes to tennis, Althea Gibson and the Williams sisters is top. Come to baseball, you got Jackie Robinson and Larry Dober. And now when it comes to President Barack Obama, I believe he's going to be one of the best presidents we ever had. And Mayor Washington, one of the best mayors that we had. But the greatest challenge that black people have today is economics. Deal with that dollar. We don't know how to live without dollar. We spending our money where it's going to help build a better future for others, when at every church should be teaching Sunday the economic side of life as well as the spiritual side. That's slave mentality that teach you to only deal with spirituality when you got to eat, you got to have clothes, you got to have a place to stay. All that comes under economic. And then we are to take care of the people who are not able to take care of themselves.
I want you to answer the question, but I have to just say this because you brought this up. Now, you brought this out. I didn't mean to say this, but you talk about talking to the churches, and you talk about they need to discuss economics and encourage people. Churches tend to have their conferences, conventions, anniversaries, and so forth and so on in downtown hotels that we do not own. And thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars are spent by congregations to occupy rooms and ballrooms and to support businesses. And I said one time when I thought about it, I said, you mean we spent that kind of money and we left the hotel down there? Because if you spent that kind of money, you should have been able to bring it home with you. You bought it. But the thing is, churches had to, first of all, begin to think in the ways that you're talking about. They need to think in terms of when they select a place for a gathering, they need to be looking for a place that at least supports our community and does not just take profit from the community and leave the community in the same condition it was in before they took the profit. Tell me about the banks. Okay.
Well, what you are talking about now.
I'm going to add all that.
All right, okay.
Go ahead.
I'm so excited.
This is what you're talking about now. This is the type of information people will get if they come to the meetings of the United American Progress Association that meet every fourth Monday at 1716 West on 79th Street. Just what you're speaking about there. I was in Richmond, Virginia, and speaking to most of the young men there were around about in that 35s or 40s, and I said, don't you live to get as old as I am, and you running over this country going to white people's hotel, have some hotels of your own. And that's what we need, you see what I mean? Just what you're saying is true. Nearly everything, what we getting, the money going somewhere else, the money going somewhere, all that money we have at a convention, you got to have $7 or $8 million you spend at one of these conventions, and it's all going to somebody else. And like you said, we should maybe bring it
home with you when you bought it.
Well, this is the type of discussion that we have in the United American Progress Association. Spend your money where it's going to help you. Save your money where it's going to help you. Like I hear you talking about the credit union. Now, what few dollars I got is in the credit union and the black banks. Of course, I mean, it's in our neighborhood. And the clothes that I wear, I buy them from the black concern because I know they're made somewhere else. You see what I mean? And that's what's wrong with the whole country now. We're spending too much money with things that made somewhere else. See what I mean? And we walk in the street.
That's the reason why you have to have somebody sewing for you, because you can't even get things that fit you right because they're not made to fit your body.
Yeah, they made everything nice somewhere else. And I say all the time, the country's in a bad shape. You're getting too much like black people been all the while, spending the money somewhere else. And most of the stuff that you find now is coming out of China or some other places. I bought a simpler thing as a handkerchief, and it was made in China. I bought some thumbtacks, and it was made in Taiwan. And that means all the jobs are there. So the same thing with us. If we spend all our money with somebody else, we're creating jobs somewhere else that should be created in the black neighborhood.
I agree with that. Now we have to get back to I raised it too early in the show not to be talking about these black banks.
Well, first, if we know better, we can do better as a people. And that's what Dr. Evans has been doing for 50 years, educating us on the need to buy black.
But you weren't here 50 years ago.
Absolutely. Well, yes, I was. I'm 54 now.
Okay.
And the reason I said that, though, he's been doing that as long as I've been living. And, I've been with the UAPA for maybe about 6 years now. But the Temple of Mercy Association, which I am the founder of the Temple of Mercy, but yet the board chairman of the UAPA, for 21 years have been pushing buying black and doing for self. And, our whole thrust, and this is why I'm glad that I met Dr. Evans, because I saw then that there was someone already doing what we were talking about. And so we started the thing of buying black, going to grocery stores and businesses and whatnot, buying black, and circulating the dollars among ourselves. And then when we dealt with the banks, we were like, okay, now, black businesses putting their money in black banks. And the people that work in the black banks and the owners of the black banks, are they putting money back into the community also? So we're looking at all of that. We monitor it, and we speak on it and educate our people on it. Now, the three banks that we know of is Illinois Federal Savings and Loan.
Absolutely.
That's one.
They've been black forever. They're the ones who let me buy my house when the other black bank didn't.
And the other one is Covenant Bank. It's a fairly new bank over on Holman and Roosevelt.
On the west side.
On the west side. It's called Covenant.
Okay, so we got one on the south side and one on the west side.
And we can't forget Highland Bank. Most people don't know about Highland Bank.
Okay.
It's right on West 87th Street. Okay. And then the other one is on 62nd and Drexel, It's right on Drexel. It's in that little mall area. And one of the major challenges I believe that banks probably have is not enough of us are putting our money in their banks for them to give out these type of loans and whatnot. A lot of people don't even know Highland Bank exists. Most of our people put our money in those other bigger banks, and those other bigger banks can give all kind of free this, free that, and bonuses and whatever. Where our banks probably can't do it to that extent because we won't have our money in it.
Well,
when you go on these banks, I just want to say this.
Go ahead.
When you go on these black banks, who I see in there is mostly our elderly, putting their monies in those banks.
Okay.
None of the youth, none of
Okay.
the young adults.
Okay.
And that's why we get out and try to educate our brothers and sisters on the need to circulate that money, to buy black, so that we can have some sort of economic power. We don't have economic power. That's why politicians and all don't have an allegiance to us, because we have the power in the vote. But you know, it's the money that the people putting behind these candidates too, that when they get in office, they know their allegiance is who put the most money up to get them in that, you know, to finance their election. And so we don't have it. So when they go in, they first get their allegiance to the ones who did. And we get maybe second, third, or fourth, you know. But we pass out literature in the community. We go into the schools where they have career day. And most of the students in the school want to be a fireman, want to be a police officer, want to be a doctor, want to be a nurse. That's okay. But when we go into those schools, we tell them about how you can own something. You know, what can you make for yourself? What can you build for yourself? We talk about entrepreneurship, where the others talk about employment. So we don't say you don't need a job, but we do say when you get that job, don't look at retiring. Look at saving your money to go to one day go into business for yourself.
That's the key, see.
That's
You
what
said
we say.
saving. You don't see young
Right.
people in banks because young people are not
saving their money.
And that's
Don't see 'em
another,
at
that's
all.
a real hurdle to get past, because there are so many things, there are so many attractions,
Right.
so many things seducing young people into having this and having that, because you're
Right.
going to be happier, you're going to have more fun, you're going to be more popular, all kinds of reasons for you to be broke. And so, you know, the whole notion of a future or to save money for a purpose,
Yes.
you know, such as not paying rent forever all your life,
right. Buy
you
a
know,
house, own it.
or not paying a car note
That's
forever
right.
all your life,
That's right.
you know, or not always having to get into some kind of debt to meet your basic needs. Is something it's a consciousness,
That's
it's a
right.
mentality.
That's right.
mentality.
Let
See,
me-
if they sew, we want to say, okay, if you sew, then make clothes and open up a clothing store.
And let me add this, which is an encouragement. There are some changes taking place, but it's so slow, it's slowly coming. You see what I mean? Like I stated about Dr. King, stated before he passed that he planned to change the struggle for civil rights to a struggle for economic and political empowerment. Then when Reverend M. Earl Sodden made more people of other races give black people jobs than any one person I know in the city. But when he passed, he was with us on the board, telling us, let's create our jobs. You see what I mean? And Dr. Vernon John, when he passed, now he had been pastor of a church, and he'd been, I think, president of school and all of that. But when he passed, he was selling Virginia hams, watermelons, and fruit and such as that. And he said, man, with all that knowledge, but he's teaching us a way of life. He said, Evans, I'm going to work with you for these last days. And when he passed, he was still working with me. And so now what we have, the same businesses that we were protesting to get them to hire a person as a manager or supervisor, now they're running the whole store. You can go to the store out here, one of the big Joe stores out here on 86th and Cottage Road. You won't find anybody now but us running. Same thing on 63rd Street, same thing on 35th. You go on 47th and a Cottage Grove, and you'll find a grocery store that we're running. So what I'm saying now to the churches, back to the church, if we can run these businesses in our neighborhood for somebody else, why don't we come up with the money and let them run them for us?
Well, I'm understanding that a lot of the major churches are banking with non-black
Non-black
banks.
banks.
Yeah,
right.
that's what I'm saying.
So, you know, you say we don't put our money in. Well, we put our money in church,
Right.
and our church in
Every
turn
time.
puts our
Somebody else.
money
That's right.
in a bank that is not
That's right.
not making the assets of the bank available to
And then the
us.
circle is broken.
Right.
And this is
So,
why
you
we
know,
stay in that
you
condition.
have to hold your pastor
Sure,
accountable.
sure,
You have to
that's
say,
what
now
I'm saying.
listen,
Our religious
you know,
leaders.
I am willing to tithe, but I want to know who the church is tithing to.
There you go.
That's it.
You know, I
That's right.
open up the books and let me see what's in the books. I should be on the books, so I should be able to see the books.
And I think the churches should own more than just a daycare center and a senior citizens home.
And the church. We should pattern that to the moment. A lot of people, oh, that's a business organization. No. Now, we're not the only people. Blacks are not the only people been enslaved, but we're the only people that's been enslaved as we were enslaved. They taught us that type of hair you got. They taught us that we had the wrong hair. They told us something was wrong with our complexion. They told us something wrong with our nose, and they told us something wrong with our lips, and that actually we were not 100% human, and we were inferior to other people. And then when they start giving us license, you can take right now, you can hardly find 2 blacks out of 1,000. Why is it that we got more churches than anybody else? There's a cause of that. They taught us about having a church. They gave us a license to have a church when they wouldn't give us a license for a business.
I was hoping you would say that because I've had a business, and one of the things that I learned about having a business at that particular time was that it was very difficult to get a lease, very difficult to get a license, and they kept coming in finding stuff wrong. Now, my husband's father owned a chain of dry cleaners, and periodically they just come in and shake him down. They just come and say, we need you to donate to this or that. And if he was hesitant about it, then somebody visited him from the city who said, you need to move all the fuse boxes from this side over to the other side. So you do have, the leasing, the licensing, but we overcame all of those things, and we're able to get up and running. But here's the problem. Here's part of the problem, where I could not get a line of credit so that you can operate until whenever you go in business, nothing is a profit. Nothing is a profit. You have invested this money, and you have got to make every dime of that money back before you have a profit. So you're in the red. You're going to be in the red until you recover your investment. But the chain business down the street from me had a line of credit. They didn't have any customers, and I tried to figure out how are these people staying in business. And I've got all these customers here. They don't have any customers because they could hang tough. They didn't have to have customers. All they had to do was have endurance. All they had to do was to be able to stay put until I went out of business. And I'm telling you, it was a real struggle to try to stay afloat with having to constantly put money into your business, and when you cannot buy in quantity. Of course, you cannot buy wholesale, when you cannot get deliveries because you have to have a certain quantity. So you have to go personally to those vendors and pick up all your supplies. Every time you need them, you got to, before you open up the store, you got to go get your stock. Because when you close your store, you got to have late hours. Our people like to come out and shop late at night. So you got to have late hours, and when you close, you can't go to a vendor. So now you got to be up at dawn, going to the vendors, resupplying, and so forth, and you got to do it based on available income. So the thing is, I am not saying anything about people not going into business. I'm saying recognize that when you go into business, you probably need investors. To try to do it by yourself is going to be a greater challenge than you should need to have to meet. And people who invest need to understand that they're investing for the long haul, and not, you're going to put $100 in today, and then the minute you see something in the cash register, you're ready to be reimbursed. So but there's a Saturday University. I wonder if Phil Jackson has thought of having this entrepreneurship as a part of the Saturday University that he has for young students. Because if we're not teaching children at an early age what you're saying, then by the time they get indoctrinated with go to school and get a job, it is very difficult to get them to take the risk, to have enough self-confidence to say, I can do this.
Let me bring in one other phase to operating business, and I want to say this particular to all our business people. Always remember that there's the importance of how you treat your customers. nothing can help a business more than a satisfied customer. It's not the person that comes to your business once that keep you in business. It's the one that you treat so well that they keep coming back and tell others. That's how I built my business, you see what I mean? I just wouldn't let somebody else be better than my customer than I was. I remember once there was a lady I sent across the street, probably she didn't want to come on dress, and she ordered a can of snuff. And my wife said, "You mean she got nerve enough to order and you got to pay somebody a stock for it?" I said, "I'm looking for her to be a customer one day." That lady ended up spending from $50 to $100 a week at my place of business. You build your business, you see what I mean? So that's what to all the black business owners, make sure that you do everything you can to do what is right, and don't make promises you know you can't keep. You see, all of that, you see, it's a lot in this thing of business, but I do know at this stage in the history of African America, we've got to own some business. We got to own something, see what I mean? Besides just church business. If you don't own more than church business, you ain't going to have the church.
Well, we have to stop being consumers and start being producers and investors. You know, spending money is easy to do. All you got to do is walk in someplace and open up your wallet. But to invest in something means that you put some money in there, and there's going to be some return that comes on this money other than this item that you take out in a brown paper bag. That's right. So we need to start thinking in terms of, why am I just buying this so I can use it up? You know,
well, you said it yourself. You know, we have to educate our young people so that when they grow up, it said, train up the child in the way that it should go.
We got
to train that child up in the way that it should go, so that when he gets old, he won't depart from it. And it's going to take not just Dr. Evans and myself, or even you. It's going to take all of us to be seen doing it and to be teaching others to do it at the same time. So you can't just tell somebody don't smoke and you got a cigarette. You know, we got to be seen buying black. We got to be seen looking for black businesses to purchase items from. That should be number one in our mind first, to find a black business. Then second, if you can't find a black business, then go to another. But our goal should be to
that hires black people. We need to see some black people in the place somewhere.
You know, and another thing today, one of the biggest challenges for black businesses, and it's going to be a major challenge, is these Walmart stores opening up in the communities. And you know the Walmart stores, they got everything on the inside, the cleaners, grocery store, clothing store.
Cleaners?
Yes, merchandise, restaurants, you name it, it's all inside of the Walmart. And as long as that Walmart is there operating, the other stores slowly go out of business. So we even got to get into a thing of not only just creating the business, but how to sustain a black business. Because just as many businesses going out of business than there are going into business. So we got a major challenge here. And if we don't get together, like you were saying about how you had to go to the vendor yourself. You couldn't get a quality amount of
a quantity
amount of it of your product because you couldn't afford it. But most of these groups that come into our communities, they work together under an association or some sort of cooperative that they work out a way to get these products, and they take their money, pool it together, and then they can go and get quantity. Even get the vendor to throw in extra, you know, extra product for them because they bought so much. Then they can come back and put stuff on sale for about 5 or 6 months with the stuff that they got for free. While you got to go and get just whatever you can afford. And then you got to raise your price because you got to get your return on your dollar. But they down the street with a lower price of the same product, and they can hold that fast right there until you go out of business. But we as a people got to come together. All the businesses got to be able to say, okay, let's form an association. Let's form an enterprise. Let's form some sort of an investment club where we can go and purchase our wholesale product in quantity.
And we
got to be able to do that.
We should share information, you know, put it on blast when you discover that there's somebody who is doing something, especially a cooperative effort like the effort over at the Betty Shabazz,
That's a good
where they're developing a food hub,
right.
where you can place your order for your food and you can go and pick it up, and you can learn some other things, so you can learn some healthy things about what kinds of things are best for you to consume. So the whole idea is that when you find out these things, when somebody informs you and tells you that here is a place where people are joining together so that they can do for self. I mean,
Yes.
do for self is an age-old, it's an age-old custom.
Yes.
I mean,
Garvey.
we have Garvey, Delaney, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I mean,
That's
that
right.
it's been repeated to us. How many of our leaders have to come to us and tell us?
But most of our people think that's individual when you say do for self.
But-
But it's plural.
But let me say that I still think the greatest institution that blacks have for bringing about a change is still the black church. The black churches have not taken on economics
That's right.
along with spirituality. We talk everything from a spiritual standpoint, and like I said, you got to eat, you got to have clothes, you got to have a place to stay, and the Bible is the greatest spiritual and economic book in the world, but we only teach it from a spiritual side, and that's why I said we have a lot of slave mentality, because we started off giving us a license for a church, and once they couldn't slave or through enslaving us physically, they started enslaving our mind. Nobody have been coming out of slavery as we did, with our minds all messed up, and they're still messed up to a larger extent. You see what I mean? That are not doing what we should do. No, you stick with spirituality, stick with spirituality. No, you got to eat, you got to have a place to stay, and you got to have clothes, you got to educate your children, you got money, you got to have in other words, we got to have more than a church. And let's,
a church is a business. What are we?
But we
what
need
are
more
we
than
trying
church-
to act
church
as
business,
though?
though.
But a church is a business. A church has to have a charter, just like any
Yeah.
other business has to have. It has to have a board. Somebody has to be responsible for it. It has to have a lease or a mortgage. It has to occupy a space. It has to pay for utilities. It has to pay employees. A church is a business.
But-
If they don't, churches, I understand that a number of churches are now going into foreclosure
Yes, they are.
because they have probably gotten expenses that are beyond their means to meet, and so now they have these problems. So a church is a business, and in the same way that people have to run a household, a church has to be run. It has to have a budget. It has to have an operating budget. You can't just come to church and think that the building is going to be there the next week if you don't pay somebody something like a mortgage or a rent for the building to be in place. And the first minister that I saw treating a church the way that a church really was and just coming down front with it was Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman. Her church was open every day. It had business hours. It was open daily. It was not closed down all during the week. I saw that model, and I said, she understands what this is she's doing. Now, whether or not you wanted to join her denomination is another matter.
That's
But
right.
I'm saying that churches know that they are businesses,
That's right.
and they operate like businesses.
But
And
let me-
they don't
and-
share that with their congregations.
Right. And I also believe Dr. Evans is saying that if the pastor would talk about the economics in the Bible,
That's it.
then a mega church or just a church with maybe 300 or 400 people would speak on that when they're in the pulpit. And it's like if they had a list and knew all of their members who had businesses, and then they all made a commitment to support that business,
Exactly.
to spend their money with that business.
Yeah,
Now that's an example of that money beginning to circulate among them in the church. Even the tithes, by that time then, now they can pay more tithes. Now the church is operating and it's self-refueling. You see? And then those businesses that are in the church began to expand. And then we start thinking more about franchising our businesses instead of just having that one business until we die.
Right.
We
Like
got to have a
Harold's.
mindset.
You looked up Harold.
That's right.
Harold
Harold's
had
Chicken is
one place.
That's right.
The next thing you looked up, here's another one. Here's another one, and they proliferated.
And we got to have that type of mindset of expansion. We got to get out of the consumer mentality.
Right.
And then we got to start thinking, okay, instead of consuming so much, why don't we take up the same mentality as the other entrepreneur-minded races? What is that type of understanding? You buy from us and we buy from us. If you have another ethnic group, you buy from us. But guess what? We buy from us also. What's wrong with thinking like that? There was a story of a guy that went to a place where the Japanese were having an invention convention, where all the things that you might have invented, you lay it out for sale. It was a black company that had invented some products, some things. And all the Koreans went past his table, they looked and they kept going. And then they said, well, maybe our price is too high, so they lowered the price. They came by and looked, they kept going. And so at the end of the day, nobody had stopped by to even ask about the price or even purchase whatever they had. So they asked that question. They say, well, look, is anything wrong with what we had at this table and whatnot that you all didn't buy from us at all? They said, no, that's not how we do things. Our motto is this: we buy from us and you buy from us. That left them out. Now, if we pick up that concept in our communities, for some strange reason, among our own people, they think we being racist. And that's sad. And that's why education is so important, to teaching our brothers and sisters the need and the state of emergency that we in if we don't buy black, if we don't buy from one another, if we don't support one another. Most of these, during this depression, which they say is a, what is a depression? What is it?
Depression with us.
There's a depression with us. There's a recession with everybody else. If they got a cold, we got a flu. See, so if we're dealing with this depression that we're in, most of the other ethnic groups are surviving because they circulate their dollars among themselves in their community. We're having such a hard time because all our money's going out of the community. We're spending $1.1 trillion a year, but less than 1% is being spent with us, among ourselves. So that makes our communities become ghettos when all the money, which is similar to blood circulating, when all the money is leaving the community, then the community becomes dry and becomes like a ghetto. But if it circulates, then it's vibrant and it can survive. We are not surviving because we don't see the importance of circulating that dollar. We even have a newspaper out called Wake Up News, in order to get our brothers and sisters to stop making so many excuses like we don't know where no black businesses are. We got about 40 black businesses in that newspaper.
We used to have a Black Pages.
We have a Black Pages, and they're trying to survive because a lot of the black businesses won't put their business in the Black Pages. See, we all got a job to do.
There's this thought by some black businesses that if they identify themselves as black businesses, that other people won't support them, and that they cannot rely upon black people to support them because black people don't always support their own businesses. It is very disturbing to see the number of wig and handbag stores in our community. I don't know why we want to buy other people's hair when it's so easy to grow our own, but we do that, and and so you see these places proliferate. You just see them everywhere. Right. And then, of course, you see in various neighborhoods, you see the one or two black businesses, like the restaurant on 95th Street where everything is made from sweet potatoes. I love that brother. He just does everything. He makes it all from scratch. And then the sister that's further down that does all the vegan stuff. So you in that long expanse, and Beverly is full of black people, so that it would seem to me that you could have more than a couple of restaurants on that street.
Restaurants, churches,
We
and beauty shops.
we
That's
are
all we basically
sophisticated
have.
people. We do everything. We buy health foods.
Yeah.
We go to spas. We get our nails done. What on earth could you believe that we need somebody who is not like us
Doing
to
the
do
nails.
our nails? It is
And
just,
feet.
I mean, to me, it is just rudimentary that there are some things that you ought to expect to see us doing. But if you can't convince young people to go into business if they don't see their parents and family
That's
members shopping in black places,
go.
doing business with black people. So you have to set the example yourself.
right.
You know, when somebody comes to your house to fix something, you know, the children see the people who fix stuff. They
Right.
see the people you do
That's
business
right.
with.
That's right.
And it becomes, it's a subliminal thing.
That's
They get used to when you want something, you want to buy something and you want something repaired or replaced, that you look to other people to do it. We have to become conscious of our spending habits, of our behavior. What are we doing with our money and why? And who is benefiting from the money we spend?
Right.
Because we are the most downtrodden people everywhere. Everywhere you go, we are the most downtrodden people. So it seems to me that in order for people to trod on you, to walk on your back, you have to be empowering them.
Yeah.
You have to be giving them, you fueling
Yeah.
somebody else. You
That's
giving
right.
them the strength
That's
to
right.
stand on your back.
That's it.
We have to change our attitude.
But let me mention again. I do want to mention, because you did tell of the different method by church being a business. But yet the different in a church business, they do not hire people like Reverend and Sister Hopkins out south here. They hire and run the restaurant. Around about 20 people there, and all of us who eat there, we creating a job. See, we haven't realized that when we come to spend our money with you, we creating jobs with you, so that the churches don't have that many jobs like at a regular business. That's why I'm
right.
saying
That's right.
that we need more than church business. But from the standpoint where you meant, church is a business.
Right.
And when I was in business with 2 grocery stores and a bookstore, then I was had about 30 different suppliers of our people. I was helping all of those. You see what I mean? And that's what I'm saying, that black people got to come together among ourselves, how we can help each other. Other people are doing it and looking out for one another, you see. And we've got to do the same thing. You don't hate anybody, and we are earning enough money. There's only very few countries in the whole world have more money than blacks in America. And if we would channel that money, save it at our banks, spend it at our different stores, then our churches wouldn't be in the trouble at the end of the day, because we'd have some money to take care of them. You see what I mean? See,
I
like
do.
you said, there are churches going into foreclosure now too, and going into bankruptcy. Y'all probably read about the one out on 77 is going into chapter 11. But the more money circulating in the neighborhood, the better it is for all of us. And the more money leaves the neighborhood, worse and all. So we got to come down. When I say, now, a lot of people don't like the term by black. I was in New Orleans with one of the head of the largest black religious group it is, and the head person says, Evans, I'll have a picture made with you where it says create some jobs, but I can't afford to have it where it says by black. That might offend my white friends.
And that's exactly how a lot of our
So
people
you have a button that says fight back by black.
Well, now this fight back by black button, that fight back came from Lou Palmer. I know you know Lou Palmer.
Oh, everybody.
Yeah. That
Another
came from
legend.
Lou Palmer.
That's right.
And I said, Lou, the button is not complete. He said, what's incomplete? You said fight back. I said fight back by buying black. So that's how I got out of that, fight back by black. Yeah. So if we circulate our money among us, we could create the jobs that we're looking for. It's just that simple. And the other thing, what I'm saying, let us find some way to stop the killing and start the building.
That's right.
Well, if we were constructively engaged in
creating jobs.
thinking about and planning for the future of our young people, because, you know, at some point we have to figure out where it is we are going. You know, because if we continue the behavior that we have now, which is to bankrupt ourselves in order to enrich and empower other people, then we're going out the world backwards.
But we changed. What I stated, though, there are some changes. Dr. King stated before he passed that he was going to change. So let's do what he said he would have done if he was living. He was going to change the struggle for civil rights to a struggle for economics. So let us do that. And the same thing with Dr. Vernon John said the same thing. Then when our board member, Reverend Son, he had already changed. He said, I'm not trying now to make, and so there are some changes. And the Urban League, in 2006, the Urban League voted in Atlanta, Georgia, that we're going to change from public relations and social work to economics. So there are gradually something. That's why I said just not fast enough, you see, because we're still suffering.
And we need to end our suffering, and it's very simple to do when you decide you've suffered long enough and you change something yourself.
But what I'm saying, if we live together, we go to church together, we sing together, we pray together, we shout together, why don't we put some dollars together?
Well, I can tell you one thing, with the current depression, recession, whatever you want to give it, we are going to be forced to do more things together because we are not going to be able to live these individual lives with all these individual things. We're going to have to begin to share. We're going to have to begin to cut back on some things, and we're going to have to shop smarter.
That's right.
We're going to have to behave like people who want to survive and thrive.
That's right.
So, you know, the circumstances will sober some of us up, and some of us will, you know, won't believe fat meat is greasy. So we'll find out, you know, in the wash. But you have been doing this for 50 years, and I congratulate you.
Over. Thank you.
And I congratulate you for, as a young man, for having the foresight to join in an effort that is this worthwhile. You know, and I don't know who raised you, but you tell them that I said they raised a mighty fine young man. And I hope that you will continue for 50 more years, and I hope that also the conversation that you're having with churches will bear fruit, that you will begin to see some
But what I'm
changes.
doing now, I've just published a book, How to Get Off the Economic Bottom. To me, I say it is the most important book that a person can read.
How to get off the economic bottom.
How to get off the economic bottom.
Did you bring a copy to me?
It tells, I intend to brought one with me.
Okay.
It tells why we're on the bottom and tell why we're staying on the bottom. But the most important part about that book, it tells us how to get off.
All right.
And,
well, with
that'll be here after I'm gone.
All right. Well, with that, I think we need to wrap it up. I want to thank you, Webb Evans.
Oh, the joy is mine.
The president and founder.
We've had a UAPA meeting. This has been a UAPA meeting.
Of the United American Progress Association and Temple of Mercy.
Yes, yes.
Oh, the Temple of Mercy Association sax preacher, you know. I have to learn how to call you Minister Rahim Aton. But
I accept them both.
Thank you. And I think we're going to hear something. We're going to hear something that tells us why you have the name sax preacher. Right. You have earned that.
Blows a sax so well.
Coming up.
All right.
Coming up.
Yeah,
thank you.
I certainly enjoyed it. I want to thank you.
I want to thank you for coming.
I hear a lot about you. Even been hearing something about you today. Something good.